The West thinks that they know the answer to development. And that answer lies in privatization, liberalization, opening up of your economy, and therefore you have the ideological domination of this neoliberal hegemony that says all of us, our destiny is to be like the West. Now, if all of us want to live like the West, like they said, we would need 6 planets to accommodate the living conditions of the West. But why must we be the West? If, for instance, agriculture is our priority, we should be able to subsidize it. After all, the European, part of the hypocrisy of this dialogue is that the European Union continues to subsidize its own farmers to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. Our farmers are mostly still dependent on hoes and cutlasses. The paradox of tomato from Italy selling much more cheaply than tomato produced by Ghanaian farmers on the streets of Accra is not because the Ghanaian farmer is lazy, it's not because he's not hardworking, it's because the Italian farmer is subsidized by Europe and the European Union. And the same European Union preaches free market and liberalization to us. So you cannot, on the one hand, be robbing me, and then at the other hand, saying that you are there to help me. Education does not mean that people just go to schools. It means teachers. It means textbooks. Invariably, it will mean the expansion of the public sector. Yet you have this doctrine that in order to run a neoliberal economy, you must hold down public expenditure. So you may have children in school and not have teachers. You want to increase access to health facilities, but then public expenditure will rise. So you cannot train the doctors, the nurses, the midwives, the lab technicians that you need. So you must have the policy space to decide your priority and budget accordingly. And anybody who says they're interested in our development should be able to follow that process. That is what ownership, alignment, and harmonization is about. It is not about us aligning ourselves to the policy choices made in Washington or in Brussels. It is about them aligning to what we define as our national priority. Do we really need aid? And I am one of those people who is absolutely certain that a well-managed Africa, where the resources of Africa is used for the benefit of the people of Africa, does not need any aid. First, most of our people are surviving without it. When you talk of countries like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Angola, DRC, Botswana, Mauritius, all these resource-rich countries, they don't need aid. They just need proper government and a responsible government that puts the needs of its people ahead of the needs of the interests of the people. Because if you take a country like Nigeria, it's bad leadership, not lack of resources. The tragedy of many of these African economies is that they produce what they don't consume, they consume what they don't produce, and the price of both is determined in the West. So you need to reverse that. Also, many of these countries on their own are vulnerable because they were countries that were created not for our benefit, but for the benefit of European imperialists and colonialists. Now, the same Europe, Britain, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, they are united in one common Europe. We could not defeat them as individual colonial powers. Today, they are united in one common Europe, and we are still busy dividing and subdividing ourselves. How are we going to make a challenge? You cannot discuss, not even countries like Nigeria or South Africa, that delude themselves that they can make special deals, with Europe. If you take the negotiation that Africa had with the European Union, it's not a negotiation of equals. Europe imposed its conditions, on us. So in order to move forward with this discussion, an Africa without aid is possible. And an Africa without aid is desirable. And an Africa without aid is what we need to be discussing. And for me, it requires visionary leadership. It requires a leadership that is able to stand up for the interests of Africa. It requires regional and continental coordination.